Hey, you guys, welcome. If we haven't met, I'm Karen Mayer, Cunningham, Special Education Boss, training everyone that sits at the 504 IEP table to navigate and negotiate successful student outcomes. So welcome to wherever you're seeing, listening, or reposting. Share this, like this, subscribe. What are the other things you could do? You could just get a matching tattoo people at the highest level. So if you guys will put your questions in the question area, questionings of the areas, that will be fantastic. And tell us where you're joining from. Is it hot? Is it sweaty? Is it snowing? I saw today that it was snowing in Chicago. So much for the green thing. So, did y'all have a Monday? I had a Monday. We started out, where did we start out this morning? In New York, where the lady said, it doesn't really matter to me if he has an IEP or not. You know what I said? It matters to me, muffin. So that was a real quick start to the day. It doesn't really make a difference to me. I can tell. It makes a difference to the parent and the student. Yeah. All right. You ready, Elena?
We are.
Or whoever. Elena, Tabitha, Cindy, Tinkerbell. Stephanie.
Yeah, so we've got our very first one. Who would like more, or I would like more information on SDI being required for ECSC. I'm a teacher in Texas.
So I think what she said was she would like more information on speech impairment being a requirement for ECSC. So speech impairment is always a requirement for early childhood, even when it was PPCD. So all of those students have a speech impairment and they receive their speech services inside of that classroom. So early childhood special education is for kids between the ages of 3 and 5 who have a speech impairment. And usually they have a neurological disability, a functional disability, a cognitive disability, and they receive services there.
Needing a ton of, so continued from the same person who was asking a question, needing a ton of physical help and is taking away from others. How can I get support in my classroom?
Oh, it's just really easy. You just hit the button, the red button outside of your door, and help just comes flying. So if you need more hands to serve the students that you have been assigned to, that is the job of the principal to staff classrooms at your campus.
I am in Conroe ISD and was wondering if you have any experience there.
Oh, Conroe. I would like to say they have phenomenal shopping. That's what they have, really good shopping. Conroe is a lot. They are committed to their commitments. Although I've got plenty of kids that are in Conroe, you definitely need representation in Conroe. They are the second largest school district in the state of Texas. I will say two good things about Conroe. They do dyslexia really well, and they do behavior really, really well.
If a student has a parent in their IEP and the parent requests a certain individual, should that be granted by the team?
No, never. No, we don't request humans. We request services. And so we don't start, I think it's a very bad practice, any more than you would say, I want my kid's first grade teacher to be Mrs. Smith, not Miss Johnson. While there are people that are really good at their job, I think that when you get the same person over and over again, it skews the data. It sets up learned dependency. And we want a qualified person to educate our student, and we believe that the school has hired them.
How late is too late to request an IEE?
365 days after the evaluation.
What do you do if you're an educator and you know your district is violating rights of all children receiving special education services?
Well, you could try to fight it, or you could come join us this summer in Florida and come to our 2-day, and we will train you to be an advocate. Unfortunately, there are systemic problems. There are great people in special education everywhere, and there are a few bad apples, but often they're in leadership at a district, and these practices are just known, and it's just unacceptable.
Accommodations were left off or wording was changed on the finalized IEP, what can I do?
I would just reach back out to the district, city, or county and go, Dear Muffin, it looks like there was a clerical error, and we need to correct that and send me the new copy of the IEP.
Can a student with a 504 go to the room with a special education teacher and not a 504?
Yeah, so if you're in a special education room, it's because you have an IEP, period. Nobody else should be in there receiving instruction.
Do you have any thoughts on teachers and supervisors with emergency certifications?
I mean, I think that's great if you have an emergency certification. There is no emergency certification for special education. There never has been, and there probably never will be. We didn't have emergencies. So you can have emergency or another pathway for a general education certification. But if you look at the OSEP, the Office of Special Education Programs letter from October 4th, 2022, it very clearly states that somebody providing special education services for initial teach and provision of related services must be under 300.156, which describes the qualifications for a special educator. That's in every state across these great United States.
My son is in YCAP at Katy ISD, and his school is not fully following his FIP to its entirety. What can I do?
I mean, I believe that things are not happening because people aren't aware they're happening. Often people aren't aware of their duties, obligations, and responsibilities in schools. And so I would just say, I would call an IEP meeting. It appears that one of his supplements is not being implemented with fidelity. Walk through the behavior intervention plan. Make sure all the team members are on board with it. And see if there's any questions and ask, going forward, can we expect for it to be implemented? And then based upon their response would be my response.
This is a follow-up to the speech impairment question. My district is only putting OHI for students in ECSC and was wondering what else I could do.
Ugh, don't tell me what district you're in, because I might just have to drive over there and go live on the Tickety Talk. Tell me what district. It's gross. You wouldn't just go to the doctor's office and go, listen, Rachel needs a prescription. You got some back there? Here, just take this. It is supposed to be an individualized education program. So it would need to be, I don't know, say it with me, individualized. So the first thing that I need to know is what is their eligibility? And then what is the acuity of their eligibility? And then what are their unique circumstances? So that's so gross. I mean, it's segregation and discrimination at its highest level. They're just all OHI kids. Unacceptable.
The school is trying to push reevaluation to stop IEP services against the parents' wishes. And it sounds like this might be a school-based member. What can they do?
Well, they can't do anything because a reevaluation requires consent from the parent. You can only do testing on a child in special education or for special education with the signature of the parent. So if I don't give you my signature, ain't going to be no testing. Is that good English? Ain't going to be. I figure if you say ain't and then gonna be, it makes the sentence complete.
Can a classroom teacher not allow a special education student to attend related arts?
Ugh. So if the student has the ability and wants to be in that setting, you can't discriminate against them because they have a special education eligibility.
Can the district ECSC classroom be half day? Our teacher wants half day and the school says it's okay.
So ECSC, it depends on, there's of course, all of them have half day. Most of them have kids that come in the morning and kids that come in the afternoon. There are some schools who have ECSC that's available for the full day. I mean, I think you first have to consider, is that appropriate for my 3 or 4 year old? And then it's a family decision whether or not you go for the whole day.
RSP teacher never provides SAI. She uses her aides exclusively. What's this failure called?
It's a violation of 300.323, failure to implement the IEP. The IEP is not negotiable. It's not elective. It's a requirement. Not an option. And so on the special education services page, we have special ed service minutes those have to be delivered primarily and initially by a special educator. Certainly paraprofessionals can support that after a direct and explicit instruction has come from that special educator, and then that has to be under the oversight and watchful eye of a special educator.
So the next one is something that has been on everybody's mind, and the question is, who will protect IDEA if the Department of Ed is abolished?
So the Department of Education came after IDEA. I don't think that people really understand the depth and breadth of that. So congressional acts are just that. They are acts. So the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act, the Rehabilitation Act. So those are federal requirements. The Department of Education doesn't teach anybody. It doesn't pay anybody. It doesn't hire teachers. It doesn't come to states and say, you did a great job, you did a bad job. I understand its intention, but it didn't come to be till 1979. So our civil rights will be in place. I mean, there are many people in the education field that think that, data collection can go to the Department of Commerce, and that Department of Education for OSEP or OSERS or IDEA or Rehabilitation Act of 1973 can go to Department of Justice. A doctor that I work with who's amazing has been advocating for important parts of IDEA to move over to Department of Justice because we believe it's a violation, and Department of Justice doesn't play around. So the Office of Civil Rights is not going to go away. So we've had lots of departments over the years that no longer exist. The Department of War no longer exists. It's now called the Department of Justice, right? So this is not new, but in all of these years since 79, 80, it hasn't changed outcomes for kids. And whether you like that or not doesn't really bother me. It doesn't change outcomes for kids. I wish there was somebody at the Department of Education that I could call and rattle their cage and something happened different in Wyoming and something happened different in Tennessee. But it is just a holding entity for, I believe, a lot of paperwork. And I think the intention is good if we can make it more streamlined, but more importantly, more effectual. And the persons that I talk to at the state level of states are excited about that coming to their states. About 14% of funding for education period comes from the federal government. Nobody said that funding was stopping. Nobody said that at all. And so I know everybody has feelings about it, but I don't see anything in my 28 years of educating kids with, serving kids with disabilities that the Department of Education has done at the state level, at the district level, at the campus level.
What are your thoughts where there is a self-contained special education classroom with kiddos from ECS through 5th grade students?
Nope, that's illegal. That's illegal. You can't have, no, that's completely illegal. No. No. We don't have ECSE children in with kindergartners through 5th grade. Whew, that would make me, my 3-year-old's with the 12-year-old with the full beard. That's a problem. It's a problem. Yeah.
My son has autism and ADHD and has major behavioral problems. He got his IEP as of last October, but has not seen any improvements. His behaviors are either the same or worse. What can I do?
So you need to come back to the table. I would ask for a district assist, meaning that I would ask for somebody that doesn't work at the campus but specializes in behavior, whether it's adaptive behavior, neurological behaviors, obsessive behaviors, behaviors that are impeding his learning and learning of others, to come in and do what I call a district assist. So it's somebody that's sort of a new set of eyes. Look at the FBA. Is that appropriate? Do we need to change that? If the IEP is not working, any part of it, then we're charged with going back to the table to fix it. That's under 300.324, reviewing and revising and developing an IEP.
For the emotional disturbance guideline, what is a time period or marked time period that would be considered a long period of time?
So for me, I would say to a marked degree and for a long time, I would say it's a grading period, right? And it has to be pervasive, right? It doesn't just happen in science class. It doesn't just happen in reading class. It's pervasive. And those can be on set. It's not like you need to have it for a long period of time, because these are kids that we better intervene, or something very bad could happen to them physically and emotionally. But you don't have to have it for, I would say 1 grading period, certainly 2. We wouldn't let a kid struggle academically and not do anything. So I don't know why we would let kids struggle emotionally and not intervene.
Can I push back on the district if they want home instruction, but the child is on medication now and the doctor has given the okay for them to return to campus?
Yeah, I mean, the district's charged with implementing their education at school. Homebound is only because the doctor says that's what they need at this period of time, but the goal is always to get the student to return back to campus or an appropriate campus.
So, Kimberly, if you could ask your question again, I'm going to go ahead and ask Karen what I think you're trying to shoot for. What type of testing do I need to ask for a reevaluation or an initial evaluation?
So all 8 areas, right? So speech and language to include pragmatic, medical, physical, sociological, a full cognitive evaluation to include all 7 Gs, formal achievement to include reading, writing, math, oral expression, and listening comprehension, formal adaptive behavior, a full psychological evaluation to look at any of the 3 neurological conditions, teacher rating scales, behavior scales, counseling as a related service, and FBA, or any related or instructional service under IDEA. So if you go to our YouTube channel, Special Education Academy is our YouTube channel, there is a series on the 8 areas of testing that you should watch and mesmerize and write it down when you go to your school.
Okay. Are general education teachers required to collect data for IEPs for their students, for their IEP goals?
If the student has a content area and the student is in a general ed class and they have an IEP goal for that content area, if they're in your general ed math class and they have a math goal, then you actually are the teacher of record and you are co-implementers on the IEP goals. So yes, if you're in science and they don't have a science goal or a behavioral goal, then keep giving them general ed science instruction. And the special educator will work on supporting their in-class support minutes.
If a student's IEP asks for an 811 program, can the school place a student in a 81 from staff short?
Yeah, I mean, those sorts of things are not outlined in IDEA. They're not outlined in state statutes. It's a good best guesstimate, right? You could have 8 students that need 16 adults, and you could have 20 students that need 1 adult. So each child's individual. I understand the thought process behind it, but it'd be hard for us to actually find it as a requirement under a state code, a district board meeting. It's certainly not under the federal government.
If a teacher disagrees with results of evaluation, can they request reevaluation?
Not if they want to keep their job. I mean, I wish it was more glamorous than that. I have tons of teachers that I train that end up becoming advocates. And most of the people that I talk to are told how to behave in a meeting. So it would be surprising that a school-based member would disagree with another school-based member. They might do it for the first time and their name would be Rachel, and then they would have to stay after class. So it's unfortunate that we don't let stakeholders all have their own voice in IEP meetings, but it's a sad reality that I see.
My son's high school will not implement the BIP. What can I do to ensure it is being used?
File a state complaint. So again, the IEP is not optional. It's not negotiable. We are charged with implementing the IEP as it was codified. That means we agreed upon the IEP in May of 2024. Then you have to implement it. You get to decide whether or not you do parts of it. That's a violation of FAPE. It's a denial of FAPE. It's a choice.
How is transportation handled under the IEP? Currently, my student is being picked up 1 hour after school gets out.
Oh, my goodness. What are they doing for an hour? Are they, yeah. So transportation is a related service under IDEA. So if we deem that a student is eligible for related service of special education transportation, we provide that. But they should be going home the same time their non-disabled peers are going home.
What do you do when ICR/POR students refuse to do work despite tons of interventions?
Track it. That's what we do. We teach and we measure. We teach and we measure. That's what general ed teachers do. That's what special ed teachers do. And if it's effective, we do more of it. If it's ineffective, we track that data and come back to the table and see if we can mitigate it.
Here's one that I haven't seen in a while. Are there such thing as general education advocates?
I think any advocate is for everybody that serves a disabled child. I'm for general ed teachers. I think that your union should be your advocate. I think that your principal should be your advocate. I think that your director of education should be your advocate. It's unfortunate that a lot of teachers feel like they don't have one in their school. And for that, I'm sorry.
So just a reminder, if you have any questions, you can go ahead and drop those in the comments section and we'll have Karen answer those for us. Can the school system diagnose a student to have a diagnosis on their IEP?
So doctors provide diagnosis. Nobody in a school provides a diagnosis unless you're a doctor. And even if you were a doctor in a school, that's not what goes on an IEP paperwork. Your determination of an eligibility category.
When should a student be in an ICR class with a TA versus a 15-to-1 class without a TA?
It's what their IEP deems is requirement for their special education program. So it doesn't talk about classrooms and ratios. It's what are the special ed minutes that are required to implement the IEP. Thank you for loving my shelves. These are IKEA shelves put together by my Mensa husband. And they're actually real-ish. Yeah. I think the real question is, what is in these drawers? That's my lifeline.
What schedule do you request for OHI when the child can't attend all day every day?
If a student cannot tolerate the instructional day, then we're charged with looking at homebound options. And depending on the child and their needs, sometimes we can do half school and half homebound. Again, those initial recommendations are driven by a medical professional.
Would you, we've addressed one similar to this. Would you have a kinder through 6th grade in the same
No.
class?
Oh, my Lord. No.
The school currently refuses to evaluate my student despite a multitude of data and 4 qualifying diagnoses. What should I do?
You should file a state complaint for a denial of FAPE and denying child fine 300.111. And you might want to think about, putting a candy bar in their gas tank. I'm just kidding. That would be a good waste of a candy bar. Maybe some marbles. So they can think about you when they're driving. Just kidding. I'm just kidding. I would never do that. I would think about it, but I wouldn't do it. They got cameras now in the parking lot, so I wouldn't do that. Remember the 70s, Elena? We could get away with anything at the field house. No cameras.
So here's another thing that it sounds like a school's getting away with. A first day IEP, signed for the IEP to start, and there's no special education teacher and no services were received. What can this parent do?
I would ask what day it's going to be rectified and give them a few days to rectify it, or we need to have a meeting for out-of-district placement at the expense of the district. Paperwork is not an education.
Yep. The school never submitted 2 years of data, and now they want to change him to another school. What can I do about this placement change?
So I would say it seems to me like you're about to screen share the data that supports your recommendation, and we're looking forward to looking at that. So recommendation is based on something that I can screen share, I can photocopy, and I can submit as evidence in a due process hearing, not somebody's opinion. So 2 things that we're looking at: what does the law say, and what does the data show? I would also need you to show me the data that supports he was unsuccessful in his current setting and that you made adjustments in supplementary aids and services to make him successful.
What goes into the finalized IEP? The school won't fix the wording or what has been agreed upon. I think that's similar to a question we had earlier.
Yeah, I mean, if it's not what you agreed upon and the school won't fix it, then I would file. I mean, you've been denied meaningful participation in the IEP process. You've been denied IEP team membership. Those are procedural safeguards that were violated. We have a whole series on procedural safeguards and what their requirements are, that they protect children with disabilities and their parents. And, you know, these are not, we don't just do some flim flam in the back room and change it. No flim flam, people.
How do I get an advocate, and who can I contact?
Yeah, just reach out to us. We have a team of partner advocates that I personally oversee and trained, and they're ridiculously amazing. So you would just email us at advocate@specialeducationacademy.com.
Do all students with IEPs receive accommodations?
I've never seen an IEP without an accommodation. I guess it could exist, but I've never seen one.
What can I expect in an IEP meeting with an advocate?
Joy and pain and sunshine and some rain. So you can expect somebody to stand up for your rights, somebody that is not in the forest. Sometimes the 2 people that are too close are the school and the parent, and they're there to negotiate your rights. And they should do it with efficacy. They should do that for a living. They should do it full time, because you would need to do that to be at the highest level for an advocate. But it's a game changer. Certainly you want to make sure that that advocate matches your personal modality. I'm not for everybody. Ask my first husband. So I have a very certain personality. I have a very strong personality. I don't, and so that's not a fit for some people. So, find somebody that fits your mission to serve your kiddo.
I have a junior, and we're getting ready to go into their IEP meeting for their senior year. Any suggestions on what I should ask for in the final year of high school?
So, for your junior year, you need to be asking to make sure you have a robust transition plan. Robust. That is to making them post-secondary ready, gainful employment, independent living, further education. A great resource for that is the Oregon Resource Handbook. The Oregon Resource Handbook is amazing. And then you want to make sure that we have the right accommodations in their document so that if they're going to participate in higher education, then you could go to the disability office and get those accommodations moved over.
What happens if a school refuses the one-to-one aid that the ARD committee clearly stated is needed?
Well, if the ARD committee stated it's needed, then it's needed. There's nobody, the committee makes the decision, not some, willy-nilly, lollygagging principal. We make committee decisions. We don't change our mind afterwards. What does the law say? What does the data show?
What can we do if we want to learn more? How can we get more information from you, Karen?
Oh my gosh, we have a 2-day training that's on demand in the palm of your hand. That's what it should be called. On demand in the palm of your hand. So you need to, what you don't know doesn't hurt you, it penalizes your student, and it might penalize them for a lifetime. You cannot expect the people in a school to understand special education law. Sorry, you can't. You can't expect for teachers to understand necessarily specially designed instruction. And so the 2-day training is going to give you this amazing foundation to work with people, to collaborate with people, and also to be okay if we disagree. Disagreeing is part of the human experience. We have this very unholy attachment to what people at school say, like they're the end-all be-all. And so people have a tendency to be really nice in a meeting. I don't know that that serves a child with a disability. It's not about not being nice, but we have to talk about uncomfortable truths in a way that people keep listening. And so we equip you to do that. And then right after that is the mastermind. And I have an announcement. Do you guys want to hear the announcement?
Absolutely.
Guess what's coming online? The mastermind. What? Yes. So before Stephanie was like, what? So it's my baby. So the mastermind is for people that are full-time, full-time advocates, and really want that in-depth training. And so we're going to make it available online so you can be a smarty pants on steroids.
Alrighty, next one. My son doesn't do well in school, and the school won't do anything to help him. What can I do?
Well, we need to get an evaluation to see what the root cause of the not doing well is, because that will not serve him for a lifetime. And then we need to look at, what we can do to change those outcomes.
How can the high school suspend my son for 3 days without giving supports academically when he has an IEP?
Well, you probably weren't suspended because of academics. So those are two different things. You want to make sure that the IEP addresses all of their educational needs. So, often when we're frustrated academically, we have behaviors. So, certainly if he's been suspended, then I would use that as a jumping off place to ask for new testing, certainly an FBA, and a way to better support him. Because our job is to keep them at school and educate them.
If the doctor recommends partial homebound, why can the school ignore the doctor's recommendation?
Well, they can't ignore the doctor's recommendation, actually. They're charged with having an IEP meeting and addressing it.
Can LRE be an alternative school to be EBD self-contained if it isn't a true self-contained unit?
So LRE talks about the continuum of placements, right? Everything from gen ed with tiered intervention all the way up to the criminal justice system. So if we decide as an IEP committee that a student needs a certain program, it doesn't exist at this campus, it's at another campus, then that is a consideration of his LRE. LRE is not a location, it's a consideration. So we should be talking about all those in depth at the meetings. Somebody said, how do we make you the head of the Department of Education? I couldn't be the head of the Department of Education. Those people are serious. I'm going to need Fun Friday.
How often have you seen a personal curriculum plan for certain students with cognitive impairment?
Never. Not once. Because you wouldn't have a personal curriculum plan. We have curriculum that's purchased by your state. Tennessee approves these 5 curriculums, and any of the district counties or cities can purchase them. Curriculum is pretty standard across the nation. The magic happens with amazing teachers that love kids and educate kids. Somebody said they would vote for me and support. Well, we'd have Fun Friday. Whether it was allowed or not, we'd have it. And we'd have Backcomb Tuesday. We get some more, bring the volume back to the people. We would have Travis grow out his bangs. We'd give him a little pompadour. Yeah. I'm going to be in D.C. in a few weeks, actually, for 3 days. So hopefully, would you guys like me to go live when I'm in D.C.? Would you like me to go live from the halls with the senators? I don't know if we can get do we get Wi-Fi down there? Hello. I'll just be on the platform. So we go live. Yeah.
After a parent states a disagreement, what's next? For my current situation, we have a disagreement about ESY.
Yeah, so when you disagree, then you're charged with offering the parent a reconvene. And the parent can either choose to accept that or decline it. Often I will decline that reconvene because I've already had enough silly conversations with the school district. And the point of a reconvene is for both parties to go back and get information that supports their position. But just to have another meeting, we're not doing that. So, ESY is so critical and so short. If somebody denied ESY, I would certainly file now.
My daughter is SDC/ILS and hasn't had a teacher all year. Should I sue for compensatory education?
So we don't really sue. So a due process hearing is a disabled child filing an administrative due process hearing against the school district. You don't need to do all that. Just file a state complaint. In fact, Wednesday night, March 19th at 7 p.m. Central, we will be training all of you that go to KDISD, Seminole County, or any other goofy district that denies your child special education and related services. So we'll be teaching you how to file state complaints and federal complaints. If you want change, you have to file.
I think this may be a follow-up to an earlier question. The teacher didn't use the bit, and the student was screaming at the teacher and then cussed at the teacher. How should I, as a parent, approach this?
So obviously what we're doing is not working. So we are charged with going back to the table to make adjustments. That's 300.324 with it. We review and revise the IEP. We certainly don't want him to have that behavior, but we have to do something different to mitigate that.
What can I expect in an MDR?
Well, you can expect that you need to have the information that you need. And so the MDR, we just did a training for that in the academy. If you join the academy, we have over 300 hours of archive trainings and series that you can go and find what you need. But you need to come with the information. If you believe, for the first question, you've got to ask yourself soberly, do I believe that my child's action was a direct correlation or causation of his disability, disorder, or disability, right? And so a lot of times it's not, right? If your child has a reading disability and they hit somebody, that's not connected. A lot of times they have a behavior that never happened at school, but it happens at home. And so parents, like any other parents, are trying to handle everything in-house, and they maybe haven't shared that with the school district. So you need to come fully ready to this to be your one meeting.
What can I ask for if my student's IEP isn't pushing towards the goal, but the district pushes on the student?
So we're charged with writing an IEP to enable the student to make progress appropriate in light of their circumstances. Andrew F., March 22nd, 2017. It's the requirement. So if they haven't done that, they have failed the student. That's a violation of FAPE.
Does a para have to be certified before they can work with special education children?
So there's credentialing in each state for paras, level 1 aides. Every state has certain credentialing for support staff, of course.
Does a parent want to supersede the teacher's suggestion in an IEP?
So good questions. It's not about wants or suggestions. We've got to get away from suggestions and wants. We go by what the data tells us what to do. We go by the data. It's not about what I want or what I suggest. You should say, based on this data, I believe that he needs this. Based upon this data, I believe he needs this. We make decisions and recommendations based on data. And so we either have that or we don't have that.
Is there anything that I can do if my child is in an ICT classroom, but the special education teacher keeps getting pulled to sub in other classrooms?
File a state complaint. Your child has been denied a FAPE. They've been denied 300.323 implementation of the IEP. File a state complaint. And yes, somebody keeps asking, are we having a live training for, you said KDISD, but it's for all school districts where you believe that your child is not getting their IEP delivered. And so that training is going to be Wednesday the 19th at 7 p.m. Central, available to all lovely humans. If you're not a human, don't come. Right, Rachel? All non-humans are not invited. They might show up.
My son is on an IEP and he needs an aide to ride a different bus, but a bus that is not so big, and no one will help me. What can I do?
Yeah, I mean, you can always reach out for an advocate. So transportation is a related service under IDEA. And if he needs that, then that great thing about an advocate is they're very good at presenting the data in a way that is compelling, right? I think people are like, I don't know, they feel like they're going to a salad bar. Did you want croutons? Do you want bacon bits? These are requirements that we educate students with disabilities to the maximum extent possible with their non-disabled peers. and with supplementary aids and services. And we're either doing that or we're denying them FAPE.
As a para, should I be the one teaching and implementing the STAR curriculum with my student?
Ugh. So, if you've been directed by a special educator and you've seen a special educator do it, but you can't be teaching a curriculum if you're a para. Paras can never do initial teach.
If a student would like to be mainstreamed longer with the same incentives, how should they act?
Incentives and act? I mean, we're not earning our way out of prison. So we have students and we decide as adults on the IEP team what's the appropriate setting. But this earning your way out it's gross. It's discrimination. Only disabled children have to earn their way to be with their non-disabled peers.
My child has neurodevelopment disorder. How would I go about determining if he is qualified for, or she is qualified for services?
You get a FIIE, a full initial individualized evaluation, and look at all those 8 areas.
What are your thoughts on extended curriculum being served for a student in a regular education setting?
I'm not sure what you mean by extended curriculum. Do you mean expanded core curriculum? So that is for students that are blind, visually impaired, deaf, blind, or deaf and hard of hearing. And parts of those certainly would need to occur inside of the instructional classroom.
Can a student be eligible for a 504 plan if they don't have a doctor's diagnosis?
If they don't have an eligibility, a disorder, a disease, a diagnosis, that's the first criteria, is that you have an identified disability.
If a school did not transfer an IEP because they didn't see a need, what do they need for the PWN?
What?
Yeah.
You don't have to see a need. It's not your opinion. It's a requirement. Lord. Yeah. Yeah, we just, Stephanie came with an IEP, but I mean, she's adorable. She doesn't need it. Can you imagine if a child came to your district and they had like 3 prescriptions? You're like, we don't really do prescriptions here.
What do we do if a child is disrobing for 2 hours a day and preventing instruction from happening?
Find a more appropriate setting for that student.
How should the PWN be given? Is it at the end of the meeting or in a separate document?
So I just received a PWN for a meeting that's happening in 3 weeks. I can't make it up. I wish I had time to make stuff up. I'm like, they put the prior and prior. I'm like, and it's all filled out. I'm like, rrr. So the PWN has 7 federal requirements. We just did a training on that. It's in the academy. When you join, you can watch that. And it's required before a district recommends an action or declines an action. And so that would you would compile that at the end of the IEP meeting and send it out, giving parents their 5 business days notice before the action occurs or doesn't occur. But I love how you guys make up questions for me, Stephanie. That's so good. Just making it up. Isn't that what we do in America? Where do you go to school? I go to Make It Up, MIUISD, Make It Up Independent School District.
What do you recommend when the educational team that you are a part of does not listen to the parent?
You just like kick them under the table. Is that legal? Is that allowed in Georgia? Do we do that? Yeah. What? You're not listening to the parents. They're the number one stakeholder. So when you're not listening to the parents, you're a criminal. That's what you're doing. Silly. Is there any criminal activity, Rachel, in Georgia? Or you got rid of that, right? It's gone now. It's like gone down to Florida. Just booched right on the panhandle.
It's all there. It's stayed right where it is.
You kept it?
Yeah, I like shake it up every now and then.
You're like a Christmas snowball. Come on, people.
How can parents get cameras in their self-contained classrooms.
Email the special education director. This is my formal request for my student in ABC school to have cameras in the self-contained classroom. How long will that take for the order to get done?
How about online schools where the student is home and the parent states the student can only work 7 hours a week?
So online school at home is not really the space that we serve. We serve students who have disabilities between the ages of 3 and 22 that receive services partially at home, or at school. So, so online school, I personally have never found that to be a good fit for my kids with disabilities. I had a lot of kids at the middle of the beginning of the pandemic who had low social skills but were really book smart. And they're like, Miss Karen, I'm done with all my school at 9:30. I'm like, oh, yeah, but that's not real life. So I'm never going to be recommending to my parents for your special ed student to be doing online school. I know it's a choice that some people pick, and that's certainly your choice. It's not my student, but that's my position on that.
When does the IEP age out? My son will be 18 his junior year of high school.
Yeah, when he graduates or is dismissed. So if you graduate at 19, when you move that tassel, that's when you age out. Since we're on the live and we have 200 people, does anybody know where I can order one of those boards, like during the meeting, like during the TikTok live, and I can press buttons and it goes pew, 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 or it makes noises? If you know about that, please put that in the chat. I try to find them online, but then they're just like volume boards. I just feel like we need a noise machine during the TikTok live. Don't we, Stephanie?
Yeah.
A soundboard. Yes, Ash, a soundboard. Where Amazon. Okay, Billy. All right, where do we get the link for Wednesday? Where did they get the link for Wednesday? Is it on specialeducationacademy.com? Will one of y'all check real quick? The great Rachel will check real quick. It should be on specialeducationacademy.com. A soundboard. I need that. I need that during IEP meetings when somebody just starts to say something goofy. Pew, 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 pew. Yeah.
You are a wealth of knowledge, and I want to learn to be an advocate. What steps do you recommend?
I recommend that you come to our 2-day in person, either June 7th and 8th or July 19th and 20th, right outside of Orlando this summer, or at any point you can buy our 2-day on demand, and you can be a special education boss at a town near you or a town not near you. This morning I started out in New York, in Brewster. I shouldn't even say that, should I? Brewster. You know, we don't have in New York a lot of blonde hair. I think that if we just brought in more blonde hair, we would come to consensus. I just feel like that would help. Like 2 blondes, 2 brunettes, 2 silvers, 2 brown. I just feel like that would be a good mix.
So we've got about 5 minutes left.
Okay.
If I want to change my son to another school, does the new school have to follow the IEP?
I would first say, why do you want to change to a new school? I mean, really talk about why you want to change. There's no promise. I could say, oh my gosh, Travis is at the new school. He's the best teacher, and you moved to that new school, and he just won a lifetime of cruises from Royal Caribbean, and you're never going to see him again. So really the first thing that I sit down with clients, which is what the first things that we train you in the 2-day, what do you want? What is it you want? And a great advocate can get you there 99.9% of the time. But a new school rarely changes the problem.
So I know we'll be talking about filings later this week, but can you share a little bit about the 2 types of filings where a parent might file a complaint?
Yeah, well, there's toenails and fingernails. Just kidding. So there's 2. Rachel, did you find it is on Special Education Academy? It's not. Can one of y'all shoot a text to Stephanie and tell her that we need that ASAP? So the 2 filings that you have are state complaints and federal complaints. They cover different things and they don't cover different things. So you don't need to file a state complaint for retaliation. The state doesn't look at that. Nor do you need to file a state complaint over an evaluation with the Office of Civil Rights. So we're going to give you an overview of both of those. If you're not available to come to that, we have 2 digital products, how to file a state complaint and how to file a federal complaint. You either do them right or they're thrown out. And so parents have a tendency to file very passionately. But just like when a police officer pulls you over, what does he say? Just the facts, ma'am. And they're not really looking for the facts. They're looking for the legal statutes or the violations or the regulations. So we're going to help you Wednesday night get that hammered out. Your trainings, are they geared towards parents, educators, anyone? They're geared for the 5 stakeholders at the IEP table. We all have the same obligation. Thank you, Shannon, who said the same thing.
What is the procedure regarding suspension when your child has a fit? He's always in trouble for hitting.
The procedure for suspension is that you violated the student code of conduct, right? So, but we have to make sure that that's not related to his disability and there's not something that we can do about that. So I'm going to take one more question. Stephanie's gone way past 45 after the hour. Oh my gosh, she forgot. It's okay. These kids today, they just keep asking those questions. Even Elena didn't say anything. It's time. Yeah. We'll take one more question. I'm going to answer one question that I saw, and then I'll let Stephanie answer a question. So somebody said that they have a mediation with a school district that all my kids graduated from for whatever. When you go into mediation, remember that you're talking to an attorney. You're talking to an attorney that probably came out of the education space. So 2 things happen in a mediation with me. Remember that it's sealed, so whatever happens in there is private. But I have the parent go first and give their story, and then I tell the mediator the legal violation. So even if you're going by, so you have an OCR mediation, it's very important that you talk about the violation of FAPE. And I see that you're talking about Tourette's, which is something near and dear to my heart. And you've got to stick to the legal violations, right? Was it 300.323? Was it 300.115? Was it 300.111? Was it 300.613? And you want to know what those statutes are before you go in, so that you're talking their language. Because attorneys, hearing officers, mediators, they're all litigators. So it's important that you do that.
Okay, last one. My child was denied an IEP and has an F in math. The school said that they can't give an IEP if it just affects one class. What recourse do I have at this point?
I would get a pool noodle and pop them in the head. What are you talking about? I guess if you have a disability in math computation, then you can't have an IEP. I think the reason that we do testing? Did we do outside testing? Did we do an IE? But certainly you are requesting full testing because you suspected disability. Not that he's struggling in class. Remember that you're requesting the testing because I suspected disability. So make sure that you write a formal email to that and let them respond with the PWN. And based on their response, you could file a state complaint for a denial of child fine. Child fine says that we have an obligation to ILE, identify, locate, and evaluate children with suspected disabilities who may be in need of special education and related services. So thank you guys for coming on. We will have the link up shortly on Special Education Academy, but it will be live Wednesday night. And we will see you guys. Does it cost to attend the seminar? Yes, there is an investment for the 2-day live or the 2-day on demand. And those are all on Special Education Academy. We'll see you guys in the next training.